Welcome back to 3D PO. Happy to have you with us today. We're going to be working with the new CN3D Toolhead version 4. This is the build video, and this will include both the assembly of the toolhead itself, as well as the removal of the existing toolhead from your Sovol SV08, as well as remounting the new toolhead onto the existing gantry. I've been through a few versions of this particular modification. So earlier on my other Sovol SV08, I converted it to the Shroud V3. And Shroud V3 was rather simple, just a different head. I add clicky, and then I converted that over to Xenomorph, and then from Xenomorph to Xenomorph with Orbiter, and I have clicky on there as well, and I'm very happy with both. On this particular modification, I'm going to be adding the eddy probe from Big Tree Tech. The guys at CN3D have just done a wonderful job with this model, and I'm very happy to be presenting the build video today. Now, this Sovol SV08 came in stock not long ago, and so I'm making some modifications as I go. And I had to write them down because there's so many. All right, so starting off with that noisy fan underneath. A larger power supply. Added the new feet with the rubber bases. I used 85A TPU. I went to mainline clipper, did that right away. I also added the Flowtech for Micro Swiss drop-in hot end replacement. That was the first thing I did on this printer, so I didn't have to deal with any of the nozzle problems. I'm going to do the LED lighting. So the LED lighting is important to me because I have that set up with WLED, and that's integrated with my Home Assistant application, so I can see status of my prints. I know what they're doing and when they're finished, and I'll turn a nice solid green and things like that. We're going to do HA integration completely, and that includes 2 cameras. So there's going to be an additional 3DO nozzle cam that's going to be added to that, as well as a new chamber cam that sits above the gantry rather than below. We're going to prepare this using with the filament cutter for the CN3D MMX, or their Munlti Material extruder. I'm really excited about that. I'm actually building that in alpha right now. I have all the parts are printed out, and I have all the parts that I'm ready to start that. So I'm pretty happy about that. Cable chain. So we'll be adding a cable chain also from Nadir. I use it on my other Sovol. Love it. Okay. Top hat. So I'm going to be adding the top hat. I printed the top hat with the side vent for the filtration fan. What's cool about that is the CN3D MMX can actually attach directly to that opening on the side, and we can feed filament in directly from there, which is kind of neat. Nomi. I'm working on a design. Hopefully I'll have a model out soon so that Nomi can be added to the front of the Toolhead version 4. I'll show you that in the build video. Of course, the eddy. It's going to have the eddy probe. I told you about the drop-in. We're going to be adding the Y end stop, and eventually I'll have the CNC gantry also from CN3D, and I'll be adding that. So there's going to be quite a bit of change in this printer from the way it was when it walked in the door. So before we get started, I just want to say it's good to be back. I know I've been gone for a little while. Things are a little bit different in here. I've kind of remodeled, and I'm happy to be making videos again. I want to keep these going. So please like and subscribe. Leave all the comments that you want to. The more comments, the better. I want to continue to make great content. I'd like to continue doing content creation for a living. I'm semi-retired right now. I'm an older guy, and I'm just happy to be doing this. And if I can do it, you can do it. So let's get started. Well, this... Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to disassemble everything until nothing is left but this carriage. So everything is going to come off. So as you can see right here, this is the drop-in replacement for the stock hot end. It's the Micro Swiss Flowtech. Okay. It was the first thing I did. Put that in there. I didn't want to mess with any of the Sovol nozzle stuff. So I'm just going to disconnect all of these cables, every one of them. So there's the cover with the blower fan inside, and I'll show you how that comes apart. And then I'm just going to go ahead and continue to take these cables off, and I'll snip where necessary. They're glued on there pretty good. All right, I'm going to take everything off of here because this entire tool head board is going to come off. Now this tool head board has already been flashed because I've gone to mainline clipper. All right, so I have other tool head boards, but I need to make sure that I keep this one separate because this one has been flashed and the UUID matches my install. So here we have the hot end cables. Now these four right here, this is power and USB signal. So this is actually a USB board, and I'm going to show you more about that later. Those things are really glued in there. All right, so these are those four wires that come from that motherboard, and this is plus and minus 24 volts plus the signal. Okay. All right, so I'm just going to go ahead and take off this tool head board and get that out of my way. Now, when you take this board off, what you'll notice is between the two boards that are sandwiched together, there are these small spacers. Okay, don't lose those. All right, you're going to need them later. All right, so I'm going to set this off to the side. Keep my screws. I have a magnetic dish. I keep all my screws in. So those are going to go in the dish. And then there are 3 screws that hold the hot end on. All right, 2 are up on top. And then there's 1 down here in the front. And that's a smaller size, so let me grab that. Okay. Okay, and these are wired together. All right. So there's your hot end fan. I'm just going to leave it. Attached. No need to take it off. Okay. All right. All right. So what we're going to need to do when we get to the part where we use the belt helper is I just want this to be as bare as possible. It's a lot easier to do when there's as little around this tool head as possible. And I'm going to go ahead and disconnect the PTFE tube. All right. Now I'm going to take off the motor and the planetary gear assembly. So when I bring this tensioner down, you'll see that there's a screw behind it. Okay, so there's 2 screws. And when I take this off, you'll see the planetary gear that's in this housing. Okay, all right. So if I separate these two, there are the planetary gears. Okay. We're going to be using those again. And here, okay, here's our motor. So we're going to use this as a tool to help us keep the belts not only easier to reattach, but also keep the tension on them. Okay. This was designed by the CN3D guys, and I loved it. I love it. I've used it several times already, and I'll just show you how I use this. Okay. So what I'm going to do is take these screws off of here. There's another size too. It's actually elongated on one side. One side is longer. There's different assemblies that require that. Okay. All right, and then there's screws that go from here to here. There's little heat inserts on both sides. And I'm just going to take out one side. Okay, just one side. I'm trying to do this as close up as I possibly can. Hopefully the focus is good. All right, so let's get that in there. Nope, got to take that fan off. I'm just going to take the entire assembly off. That'll make things a little bit easier. And there we go. There's that extra part cooling fan. Take that off. All right. Now that's out of the way. All right, so what I'm going to do is, well, I'm going to have to take that off too. Take that off. All right. And all we're doing is we're just going to find the teeth in the belt. Yeah, usually we'll find it itself. All right. Then I'll come in on the other side. Just like that. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get these screws started on the top and bottom just a little bit. There we go. And on the bottom. Okay. I'll put the link in the video for the belt helper with the longer reach. Okay, there we go. All right, so now what you'll see is when I crank down these screws a little bit, it'll take some of the tension off of the belt. See that? And then we'll be able to take off this this carriage, and we'll be able to put the new one back on easily. Okay. Okay, pretty loose. Tighten it up a little bit more because we can. Okay, great. All right, now you'll see here two brackets, one here and one here. And there actually is a little piece where the belt slides down in, slides up in on both sides. So we're going to reuse these, okay? And I'll show you how when we do the new V4. So we can leave these. Now, if we were going to the xenomorph, that'd be a different story because that's a different mounting method. So we can reuse these. We're gonna need longer screws, but we're gonna reuse these. Sorry, I don't mean my arm to get in the way here. All right, and so now what we have are these two, and they're still nice and tight on either side of the belt helper, which is amazing, right? Okay. All right, so now what we need to do is take basically everything off of here so that we can get to this. There we go. So that is the old one, and this is going to be the new one, okay? That's it right there. Cool, right? All right. All right, let's get back to work, shall we? So we're going to use the actual carriage, but this mounting frame where those screws came out, we don't need anymore. We'll be using these four holes. These four holes in those four holes right there. So I'm going to take off the entire bracket. All right, and then once this is off, and before I put the new one on, I'm going to put a couple dabs of grease on there as long as I am this close to the actual rail mechanism, right? So there we go. Okay, let's get started with the build. So here is the carriage, and we're going to build this just to show you how everything's going to go back together, and then we're going to take it all apart to put it back on the machine, okay? So I just want to show you all the locations for all of the heat set inserts and all of the magnets. Now, one of the things that's very impressive about this design is the N52 magnets and the positions that they're in. It's incredible, right? So yeah, really holds on, okay? So N52 magnets, love it, okay? It's easier to take off when it's mounted. There are nuts, M3 nuts inserted here, and that's going to be where the belts on the carriage are going to be attached. Heat set insert here, M3, M2.5 here. This is for the third screw on the hot end, okay? 6x3 magnets. I'm using the N52s, very strong. These four, these two, okay? This is actually a standoff. It's a spacer. It's a separate part. I actually put a little dab of glue in there to hold it in place because that's what I'm using for the drop-in nozzle substitute. I don't use super glue when I'm gluing ABS to ABS. I really like this. This is it's a side grip, and it's for acrylics. It's really amazing stuff, right? So it has a high thinner concentrate that basically bonds the material together. Love the stuff. Okay. All right. There's going to be two M3 heat inserts back here. And then there's two M3 nuts that are inserted from the back. The way I do that is I bring a screw through this side and I pull it in. Now I'm not going to be using these because I'm using the stock nozzle. Okay, so that's all the locations on that. On the extruder, two M3 heat inserts. This is going to be the cable clamp for the cable coming from the main board on the printer. Two M3 inserts. These are for the controller board. Okay. And then one insert here, M3. It's long. It's I put a 5.7 millimeter in here, and this is for the tensioner. Of course, PTFE fitting. All of this is in the bill of materials. Here's a filament cutter, and this is just using a number 4 hobby blade. It's broken off, and then let me see if we get a focus there. The length is 8.9 to 9 millimeters. This is the spring. This is the 5 by 10 millimeter. What I want you to be aware of on this spring, when you order it, when you try and order one, they can come in all the way up to 0.5 millimeter wire width. That's what you really need to get. If you don't get the 0.5 millimeter wire, it won't be strong enough. This is a very strong spring, okay, for the filament cutter. All right. I made a splitter for on the controller board, and this is going to be for NOMI pulling 5 volts and for the RGB. Okay, and the RGB is pretty easy to install. I did it. If you can solder, you can do this. Okay, and basically what I'm doing is I'm going in this one and then out the back side into this one. So this will be LED 0, LED 1. There are 6 by 3 millimeter N52 magnets. 4 here, 2 here, 1 there, 1 there. There is also on the inside an M3 insert, and that is going to be the retainer for the blower fan. Okay, all right. We're going to reuse the same blower fan that came with the stock hot end. Right. So all you need to do is pull out. It's going to be glued in. Just take out the screws. It'll slide out. And when it slides out, here's the vent. And here is the blower fan. And we're just going to reuse this blower fan. Okay. So what we're going to do first is mount the extruder to the carriage. So let's do that first. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to take this part of the extruder that we took out of the original assembly, make sure that it's nice and lined up at the exit hole, and we can test that by putting a piece of filament through and making sure that it lines up, and it does. It lines up perfectly. Okay, see that? All right. I love this new camera. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these gears, and there's a little bearing on the inside. Let's see if I can get that focused. A little bearing on the inside. That's going to go face down. and the planetary. Okay. All right. Then what we're going to do is we're going to take a carriage. Now remember, I'm assembling this, but we're going to take it all off in order to mount it back on the machine. All right, so I'm going to take some grease, put it in there, like that. Don't need a ton. There wasn't a ton to start with. Some people like to use white lithium. That's fine too. This is a position locking mechanism, this bar right here, and that fits into this groove on the extruder. And we'll just pop that in there. All right, good. So now we have the extruder mounted. I'll get to the X end stop here shortly. All right, and then the motor is just going to mount right in there, just like that. And you can see, okay. And then there'll be two screws. One on this side. Get the right bit. Okay. Okay, there we go. Beautiful. Moves smoothly. All right, now we have the arm, and what we're going to do, we're going to mount that just like that. We're going to take the pin that we took from the original assembly. Right, so I'm not going over the disassembly, I'm just going over the assembly. These are a nice tight fit. That's the one thing about these CN3D designs, is the fitment is very tight. It's very accurate. All right, everything is the fitment is really good, I must say. And then we'll take the original pin. I might have to persuade that a bit. All right. Then we'll take the original tensioner screw. Beautiful. All right. And now just for grins, I'm going to put that there and start the motor going. And I'll just twist that in, and it should come all the way out. There it is. Love it. Perfect. All right. And now I want to show you something. I printed this. I'm going to actually add this. So inside of the original hot end, as well as the drop-in hot end, you'll see that there's a little recess. Let me see if I can get you. A little recess between the end. So on the original, see there's this little guy here, this little collar. Okay. Well, we're missing that when we go direct from here to this hot end. So what I decided to do, and hopefully Nadir won't get too upset with me, is I just made a little collar with a chamfer. That little chamfer just fits right in there. It's nice. Okay. It's perfectly flat. And then I can use that. So with that, take the entire assembly, pop it on there like that. Screws. Screw. Nice and tight. And then we have the third screw. It goes right down there. That's a long M2.5. Change the bit. Beautiful. Love it. Okay. So now the hot end is mounted. Let's do the cutter. So the cutter is just going to go right in there like that. And the actual mechanism is going to be right here to push that in. Okay. Okay, I'll just put a screw in there. Keep that kind of loose. And now our spring-loaded, there we go, our spring-loaded filament cutter. Thing of beauty. Okay. All right. This is the X end stop micro switch. And I pre-wired it because I had to solder the wires coming through, and I needed to split one of the connectors on the control board, and I just put it into one connector, and I'll talk about that here coming up shortly. And these are just they're 1.8 millimeter screws. And where's that? Just 1.8 millimeter screws. And here's the other one. Okay. There you go, screwed in place. Okay. And what this will do is it will, this will be attached to part of the carriage, and then it will touch, and that'll be our X end stop. Okay. All right, so here is our filament sensor right here. And that's going to take a 5 millimeter ball bearing. It's going to fall right into that little spot there. Micro switch, and that's going to squeeze right in there. It's a tight fit. It's perfect. Okay, so what you'll hear now is when I put the filament in. I don't know if you guys can hear that. That's the ball bearing pushing up against the micro switch, and that's the indicator that filament is present. Okay. All right. And then we're going to mount the control board. And remember these spacers I told you about. Okay. So keep those spacers when you pull the original board off. All right, we're getting there. Okay. All right, and to become a little bit familiar with the wiring, you guys will all get this, right? There's going to be a build document. And this is all the pinouts for the stock board. So you can see that the X end stop and the filament sensor are both using the probe location on that control board, right? So our hot end fan will stay the same. Our front part fan will stay the same. We're going to use the UART to control our RGBs. And I'm going to take the 5 volts and ground, and that's what's going to power my NOMI. And that's why I built this. Right, so I'm going to go into this connector, actually like that. And then I'm going to grab 5 volts, ground, and signal, data pin for the RGB, okay? And this is just how I decided to do it. How you guys decide to do it is entirely up to you. I'm just trying to reuse connectors wherever possible. Since really the only ones I had to alter was I had to make one of these for the probe. Hot end fan, front fan are going to stay the same. And then we're going to look at the RGB control and 5 volts for NOMI. Okay. All right. So this right in here, this is 5 volts and 5 volts for the NOMI plus data for RGB. Okay. All right. And then here are the end stops. And the end stops are going to plug right in here. And so we need to know and remember that the data pins that we're using for those end stops, in my case, for our printer.cfg file, we're going to use PB7 for our filament sensor. We're going to use PB6 for our X end stop. We're going to use PA10 for our RGB. And everything else should be just as it was originally. So that's good news. All right. And then, of course, our motor. And I'll be finding other ways to route these cables once we have it mounted up on the carriage, which is going to be the next part of this video. I'm going to show you how I did that. Okay. All right. And then, of course, we have our hot end cables, our thermistor, and our heater. All right. And then we have our blower fan. Our blower fan just goes in, just drops in. Okay. And again, these guys do a really nice job as far as fitment goes. So when I say they do a great job, I mean everything just kind of clicks in exactly where it's supposed to go. It's very well designed. These guys do a fantastic job. I'm bugging Nadir all the time. He'll tell you. Okay. And then this little retainer is going to go down in this corner. Okay. This. The heavy end wants to hang down, so just going to go with it. Right, there you go. There it is. You can see it there. Okay. Now that's not going anywhere. That's the front. Now, I'm still working on the design. I'll probably have something out shortly. So I just took I went and grabbed the step files from the Big Tree Tech site, and I came up with something similar to this, where I just have a cover that goes over this piece in the back that actually just snaps into place like that. And then you can get to the wiring from behind, right? And you could mount the antenna, say, up here, maybe. Put the antenna there. But Then you'd have Nomi on the front. What I don't like is it would be sticking so far out the front. Again, I'll be talking to Nadir. We'll figure something out. It'll be beautiful, I'm sure. These guys are very smart. All right. All right. So that's the front. And everything together. Let's see if we can do this. Anyway. So there we go. There's the intake for the hot end fan, blower fan, filament cutter. Okay. All right, so when I come back, I'll have this all taken apart and we'll be mounting it to the carriage on the printer. Be right back. And Eddie, I want to show you Eddie. So here's the big Tree Tech Eddie. And I just use a tool similar to this, and I just, pry in the sides, pop the back off, grab the Eddie. This is an Eddie Duo. And the Duo allows me to do CAN or USB. In my case, it'll be USB. Now, I went ahead and I just grabbed a USB cable that happened to have the same connector structure, and sure enough, all of the data pins and power pins were correct. So that's what I'll be using. So the way that this is going to work is this housing. Tell you, the stuff's all really, they did just a fantastic job. So this slides in like that. Perfect fit. This goes across that alignment block. And just look at that. It's just perfect. All right. And then this goes on here like this. 2 screws, and we have Eddie. But again, this is all going to come off so that I can put this back on the printer carriage assembly. Right. Okay, I'm going to attach the belts to the carriage assembly first, and then I'll attach it to the carriage itself once the belt helper is removed. So I'm using M3 by 15 cap screws, flathead. All right. And what you'll see here is this is when I went a little too long on a screw, and that's why I ended up going with the 15. So this is the boring stuff. Okay. Make sure it's good and tight. Goes right in there. Beautiful. And I'll tell you, on my other SV08, I had the Xenomorph with the Rapido Ultra High Flow, and I got to tell you, I love that printer. I went from I originally had the V3 shroud on there. Okay, so those are good and tight. So now we can take the belt helper off. So let me change the bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to loosen this up. Actually, I'm going to take one entire side off. Okay, remove the clamp. Looks like I'm going to have some belt tensioning to do when I'm done, which means you guys will too. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to mount this to the carriage. And these are M3 by 10. And then when this is attached, you're just going to go back and repeat the assembly instructions from the previous portion of the video. And you'll be good to go. So the next video will be taking care of your printer config for the end stops, filament sensor. The filament sensor is really a great thing, okay? And also eddy, and we'll show you guys how to do that. Here's where the if you guys can see that, the X end stop will be mounted right there. Okay, so this moves over, click. Okay, all right. Yes, we have a little bit of adjusting to do here. No big deal, but yeah, there you go. So just repeat the assembly from the previous portion of the video, and you'll be good to go.